All right. With us now is CNN senior military analyst, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO and partner of the Carlyle Group, an international investment firm, Admiral James Stavridis. Admiral, thank you so much for being with us. One of the reasons people are asking questions about Pete Hegseth is this new report that he was on a second Signal group chat, this one from his personal phone, where he shared military plans, among others, with his wife and his brother. This is how the secretary explained that Signal chat. Listen.
What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning.
Informal for media coordinations and other things. This is what the New York Times is reporting this morning about what that was. Details about American strikes in Yemen that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared on a commercial chat app came from U.S. Central Command through a secure government system designed for sending classified information. That's according to an official and a person familiar with the conversation. So how does his claim of it being informal media coordinations land with you?
It cannot be true. And the source of the actual information that was passed came across what's called the SIPR net, John, which is the highly classified, appropriate to use in this circumstance. But then, evidently, and I think this is reliable reporting, the Secretary of Defense of the United States takes this highly classified information and puts it on an unclassified server, strike one. Then he passes it on a Signal chat to his wife, unbelievable, to his lawyer, can't figure that one out, and to others. That is strike two. I think everyone is saying, okay, there's probably more to come here. There could well be a strike three. My bottom line, if I'm former major in the Army, served very honorably in combat, Pete Hegseth, I'd be looking in the mirror and saying, maybe it's time for me to acknowledge what's going on here.
You're not satisfied with his explanation?
That would be putting it mildly. And I think when you have essentially the entire national security structure of the United States talking about this, and I am in contact with people both in the government, outside the government, people are just completely scratching their heads about this. And finally, go back to what we saw just a moment ago. How do you get 76% of the American public to agree on anything? I guess you take highly classified information and put it on an unclassified server. 3 out of 4 Americans agree that this is not right.
Let me ask you about what's not happening in London now. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, who's in charge of negotiations with Ukraine, not going to the newest round of negotiations over, ending Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Why? Apparently the administration unhappy with how Ukraine is responding to what's being called the final offer from the U.S., the final plan from the U.S. for peace there. Now, CNN is reporting that part of this plan is that it's saying there will be official recognition of Russia's ownership of Crimea, which, of course, they invaded several years ago. Others, including Barack Ravid at Axios, are reporting it also requires essential, de facto recognition of where the lines are now in Ukraine, the Russian occupation of different places there. How do you think Ukraine should feel about this as a final offer?
Well, let's back up and simply say it is a good thing that at least we are edging towards some kind of a negotiation, potentially have a ceasefire before that. All those are good things, and we ought to credit the administration for working hard to get there. Then you get into the details of the deal. Personally, I think ultimately we are going to have to recognize the military reality of a very strong Russian position in Crimea and the 4 provinces that constitute the land bridge to the Rodina, to Mother Russia. That's just a reality, John. And whether you start with a formal recognition or you end up there, or you end up with the 2 sides disagreeing about it, but forces are fixed in place, all that is to be determined. But I, for one, give the administration credit for pushing both sides to the negotiating table. And I think if the Trump administration puts equal pressure key phrase, equal pressure on both Russia and Ukraine, they can get these sides to a ceasefire, then a negotiation. Then we'll figure out exactly what the modalities of geography are.
We will see if either side moves toward the center on this. Admiral James Stavridis, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time as always.